When my dad left when I was in middle school, that was probably the lowest point. Not all debt is bad. And there are a lot of gurus out there that'll tell you to get out of debt, get out of debt. And I don't find that that works well. If you're doing 100 different things and only two of them are working, well, 98 things are probably wasting your time then. Like just you're spreading yourself too thin.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Be With Ish show. Today, I have Aimee Cerka. She's the money confidence coach for the female entrepreneur who's ready to finally ditch the financial stress, struggle, and frustration. After over 10 years of experience in the personal finance industry through multiple personal finance and medical crises, she was fed up with the lies that are being shouted from the rooftop by gurus and the media. So now she blends the practical strategies and mindset work together to help you step into the unstoppable finances, regardless of what's going on in the economy, so that you can finally figure out the money thing without sacrificing your lifestyle. She also has her own podcast called Your Money, Your Life, so check it out, and I will link it down below. So welcome, Aimee, and thanks for coming over.
Absolutely. I'm so glad to be here. Thank you.
Of course. Is there anything else in the introduction that I missed out that you want the listeners to know?
I homeschool my 4 children. They're 11 to 6 months old today when we're recording. But that's the main things.
Okay, awesome. So I guess let's get started from the beginning. Is what gets you out of bed every morning?
Yeah, and I love this question. I honestly had to really think about it because with 4 children at home, I don't really have a choice. I have to get out of bed.
Yeah.
But I really love what I do, and I really help. Like, I think a lot of people say this, but feeling those breakthroughs and helping people to really experience this. Like, I truly am passionate about what I talk about, and because the financial literacy is so important. And family is so important to me. So I would definitely say my family and that fire to help more people kind of see the light when it comes to the money.
Since when do you think this light came into you?
It started when when I was pregnant / when he was born. That was really one of our first major financial crises. I had been, like I mentioned, in the personal finance industry and done a little bit of entrepreneurship to the point that I was able to leave my 9-to-5 in insurance when I was 3 months pregnant with him. And my husband is a truck driver. We owned our own truck. So that was another separate business. But we had a business deal go bad. So I left my job on a Friday. The following Monday, business deal went bad. We went to zero income essentially overnight at 3 months pregnant. And there was a lot of scramble and hustle then. So I had learned the financial principles and I had applied them and got a 36% raise at work over a course of 18 months and all these other things. But it wasn't until we were thrown into the middle of the crisis. We recovered there, took a 50% income cut, but we made it through within the next week. We had something figured out. But when Wyatt, my second, was born, he had an undiagnosed birth defect. So even though he was a full-term baby, he was transferred to the NICU, had his first surgery at less than 48 hours old, and was in the NICU for 53 days. And during that time, I was able to be there with him every single day. I left to take care of myself and to spend time with my oldest, but being able to be there and seeing so many other parents not being able to do that because they hadn't taken care of the money thing like we had. And even I created a negative money association. We can talk about the mindset portion during that time, because even though I was able to be there, I hadn't hit the financial level of success that I wanted to. So I created a story during that time that I had failed my family, even though that was really the turning point and the passion and realizing this is really important. It might not be a baby in the NICU, but everyone has something that happens, and being able to be there and be present during that time is priceless.
Okay, awesome. I think the thing that you said about the relation thing is really interesting, and I'll get into it more later, because I noticed that a lot of your even coaching right now is talking about the relation with the money and how you change your mindset, like start to love money, accept money. Are you ready to actually receive money once you get it? So yeah, I mean, I'll get into it a bit later, but that was interesting to know. So I was curious about like what you think is unique about you, and not in terms of business, but just as a person. Do you think there's something, something about your background or something about your belief, ideology that makes you unique than everyone else?
Yeah, I think I guess it kind of has to do with business, but my work ethic and my drive to be consistent, this isn't like toot your own horn, but like this, I have not met anybody who has the same level of, I guess, capacity to efficiency and get things done. And that was really from going through so much that I went through high school. There was a narcissistic instructor and I was in winter guard. So that is associated with the marching band here in the US. And I did really well. I had to work my butt off at it, but I wasn't the teacher's pet. So I didn't get the same recognition that I deserved, but I worked my butt off to take care of what I needed. And during that time, that efficiency was developed. So way more efficient than anybody else that like I can think of. Yeah. And that it's probably the biggest thing that comes to mind.
Okay, interesting. So you have this, you said in high school where you're trying to impress a teacher, and then you had the point where, your second baby was born. Which do you think either one of them has been the lowest point of your life, or has it been something else that has been the lowest point? And how did it change you in terms of business and also in your private life?
I think probably my lowest point, when Wyatt, my second, was born, that was really tough, but I don't feel that was my lowest point. When my dad left when I was in middle school, that was probably the lowest point. And it wasn't something that I realized until after the fact. Kind of like when you're in it, you don't realize how bad things really are.
How do you think it has changed everything about you? Do you think it has made a big impact in your life? Like
Absolutely.
In the future?
Yes, 100%. A lot about what we talk about, like with the emotions, even with money, has to do with your relationship with money and your association. And I had created negative associations and negative stories. They weren't even necessarily true. Like I've had conversations, this is something I can talk about with my mom, about like, okay, hey, this is what I remember. Is this what actually happened? And we have different remembrances. She's like, that's not how that would have gone. But I created scenarios during that time of what I think happened. And it was a negative story that I've associated and that I took on for years of feeling like that I wasn't worthy of really anything. It wasn't worthy of being heard, that everything had to be a struggle, that I wasn't worthy of people listening to me and etc. And it was all done subconsciously, but it was also a very low time, even like physically. I mean, middle school is hard enough as it is. And then it was kind of a blindsided event.
Do you think it's a smart strategy or a sustainable strategy to create these fake scenarios, not fake scenarios, sorry, maybe exaggerated scenarios in your mind so that it can help you actually in the future or help you with the work? Because you said that kind of scenarios or the thing that you have about that time has kind of like almost in a sense, like change the way that you think and kind of like motivate you to do certain things. Do you think it's a smart strategy for people to adopt? Because I know a lot of athletes do that as well.
That they'll exaggerate like the results and the thought processes behind it.
Yeah.
I think that your subconscious mind is a very, very powerful tool. And if you can use that to empower you, definitely do that. I don't believe that we have to create negative memories. Our subconscious mind does that for us already. Like what actually happened and how we feel it happened. For all of us, we have these things where it's our perceived reality. I don't think we have to go out and intentionally make it negative, but I think we should absolutely be using our subconscious mind. We joke that it's a supercomputer. So if you're not using it, actually one of my favorite books, it's called The Ant and the Elephant. It talks about the subconscious mind versus the conscious mind. And your conscious mind is the ant and the subconscious mind is the elephant. Like you're not going to use the ant to tell the elephant what to do, no matter what, the elephant's going to win.
Yeah. Interesting. And so, regarding that, again, you said that in one of your YouTube videos, I've seen that I think it's a very common concept. I've actually heard a lot of people talk about it. Is that you were talking about that money is just a form of trade, and do you think it's something like that people really don't understand that like that's why you have to like keep emphasizing on it, and a lot of people do. So can you just like kind of like expand on this concept and why people have it wrong?
Yeah. Are you talking about the open to receiving money one?
Yeah, I think you said that like a lot of people think about like, money just as a currency, but which is wrong. It's more like just a form of trade. So,
Yeah,
it's not have to be an actual currency exchange.
absolutely. So yeah, this is actually a really fun experiment that I've done because anybody that I really ask will be like, yeah, I'm open to receiving money. Like, heck yeah, send it my way. But what I find is it's not really the case. And I actually just last week's episode that just dropped was with a guest, and she had listened to that and was going through an exercise with one of her coaches and had said the same thing, like, hey, I've got this. But for her, she couldn't visualize money or like a scenario. She couldn't actually see things. So it's not always necessarily that we can't receive money, but money in its, we think of the currency of money, like the actual
Yeah,
physical dollar bills and etc. But
exactly.
it is a vibration. It's like an energy. And if you are not open to receiving it, we can do that in a couple different ways that we help train ourselves to be able to accept that. I think one of the examples, that was a different one, but I'll share this example. So I have my groceries delivered to my front doorstep. Okay. And a couple weeks ago, we got the grocery delivery. They doubled all the produce that I had ordered. Like, we got double the quantity of everything. We were only charged for one. They doubled it. It's literally delivered to our front door. It's not something like I can go return and they'll actually take. So that is a form of wealth, a form of money, a form of things that we were receiving. It's a blessing that we were given. So if you earn something, if you walk past the penny on the ground, like, we have to stop ignoring the wealth that's showing, whatever way that it's showing up. After I had my youngest daughter, we had several people that gave us gift cards. That's not technically a physical currency, but it's still a form of wealth. It's still a form of money. That vibration that we were open to
Yeah,
receiving it makes a
yeah,
difference. We don't have to get so tied up in the dollars and cents of it, but look for the reward that you're accepting and what that monetary, the dollars and cents portion value of it would be. So if you have somebody, like for me, having somebody to watch my kids and they're willing to help me, that's still a monetary reward for me.
yeah. Interesting. I really like that money is a vibration energy that you should be accepting to take. I've never heard it like that before. So, um, these are things that you actually have in your financial coaching business as well, right? All
Yeah.
these concepts and everything that you teach. So, you talked about that you realized all of this when your newborn baby was born. You were able to trade your time because you were, and then something happened, and then you kind of went back. So anyway, how did you transition from that to thinking, okay, I'm going to start a business around it,
Yeah.
or
So
start a coaching? How did that come about?
yeah, the network marketing company that I was initially involved with, how old's my oldest? 11. So 11 years ago was focused on personal development. So I was doing a lot of personal development, professional development, and financial literacy just by being involved in the program and learning more. And that's how I got the raise that I had there at work. And they had a financial pack, is what they called it. It was like a mini training program.
Yeah,
And for several years, I was using that and helping people and teaching people with that. Like, you don't have to come join me with the network marketing company, but like, here, we need to come learn, you need to come learn this, and we can just focus on this. A lot of the ladies that I worked with were in network marketing companies of their own. And there's always a little bit of like, I don't want you to steal me away from the company, which that's not my intent. I never would have done that. But
yeah,
between that and like, I wanted to be able to write my own rules, because between going through that program and then going through several others, there was good parts of all of them that I wanted to be able to meld together to create my own framework. So about 5 years ago or so now, I was like, we're just going to do this. And so I started out, left the network marketing company, started on my own full coaching on myself, and started
yeah,
with one of my first budgeting. One of the first courses I offered was the Budgeting Simplified, which is my 4 weeks to budgeting for prosperity.
Yeah. This is now that like I know this story, obviously it makes sense that you did it, but like the one thing, for me has been like, or like I think just like a lot of people face this. It's just, as you said, there's just so much abundance, like not abundance even, like I think the better would be like it's overwhelming because the amount of like, information that could be there online at certain times, right? And also people who claim to be financial gurus and experts, and not just actually in the financial industry, but every industry, like, right? Like, especially with this internet thing, like a lot of online business people. So how do you think like you are different, or have you ever had that claim that I like been, claimed as one of these other like financial gurus, but how do you overcome that? Or like, how do you think you're different basically to all these other people?
Yeah. So the thing that I feel like sets me apart is really that I do blend that strategy, that practical, like this is how you do this, and the money mindset portion, because a lot of people I find will lean really heavy on one side. And you can ask like several of the members, my academy is my signature program. Like we focus on both sides. Like it has to be that emotion and how we feel about money. That is so key. And I do feel like that's what sets me apart. But it's also one of those, talk about like there's probably enough information out there from my podcast and everything else and all the other things. Like you can go find it, but what are you going to do with it? And having somebody that'll hold you accountable, that like you're a safe space. They know that there's no judgment, there's no guilt, there's no shame with whatever you do with your money. Like we all have different things that we've done. Like I'm not here to judge you for whatever you might have done with your money. And I think those two keys make the big difference.
Yeah, actually, I agree. I noticed that you're very transparent and you actually have a lot of information already on your YouTube channel and your podcast. So, so the thing you're saying is that in your course, you also get that accountability factor apart from just his videos and lessons.
Yep. And that's what makes the difference, because I can tell you how to do it all day long, but if you're not actually doing it, that's the thing. And for most of us, that getting started doing it is where all the emotions come up, and then we got to handle those so that you can actually move forward.
So is it targeted only to female entrepreneurs, or?
That is probably my like sweet spot marketplace, niche. But niche, but I have not turned anybody away, because again, it's a passion of mine. As long as we vibe well, like I'm good with it.
What's been one of the like most fulfilling, I guess, reviews or feedbacks that you've heard from these people?
Actually, one of my academy members, Kylie, was on the podcast last month when we were doing a promotion, and she talked about what she was feeling. It was really sweet, but like what she was thinking when it came to like getting started and getting like ready to enroll in the academy, where she was at. Yeah. And that unstoppable finances framework that I talk about, Kylie and I are in another group coaching program together for somewhere else. And that was like how we met. So she had been around for a while, and she heard really when I developed the framework and we had talked about it, she's like, I just don't see the whole unstoppable finances. It doesn't speak to me. And when I discovered that, I was actually working with a coach myself and built that framework. Like it was just, I don't know, massive light bulb moment. Like, this is it. This is what I've been working towards, because so many of the other financial coaches out there will be like, hey, let's go make 6 figures, or let's get you out of debt. I'm like, that's great and all, but that's not my end goal. Like, it's going to happen as a byproduct. But knowing my history and being through the different financial traumas and the medical crisis and those things, it's not about like if something's going to happen, it's when. And when the stuff hits the fan, what are you going to do? And being able to stay calm and maintain your composure and keep going, like that for me was being unstoppable. And when we were talking on that podcast recording, she was like, I get it now. Like, I didn't get it before, but I do feel unstoppable in my finances. And it was like this full circle moment for me.
Awesome. And then in your podcast bio, regarding your podcast that you mentioned, you talk about here you'll find strategies to systemize your finances so that you have more time for your life, your family, which is actually a pretty big statement. Like if someone's reading that, it's going to be like, oh, okay, it's obviously no brainer when you bring in like family and when you bring in your life and family. So if you're allowed to talk about it, I'm not sure how much information you can share. What do you think are some of the biggest mistakes that people actually do make in terms of systemizing their finances or dealing with their money? And yeah,
Absolutely.
both.
So there's,
I was
go ahead.
gonna say younger people, but I guess just like generally, just in terms of like what you've noticed.
Yeah. So probably a couple of the biggest things I see is we don't actually have a budgeting system set up. We might have something like YNAB, YNAB is my favorite for personal expense budgeting tracking. And you can have that set up and you can have your expenses imported, but that's not a budget. That's expense tracking. It's done after the fact. We're not proactively looking at our numbers. You might have those things set up. And then for the business owners, QuickBooks, we've got our expenses imported into QuickBooks, but you're never actually doing anything with the numbers. So it doesn't do any good. And if you're not looking at the numbers, normally there's, I'm too busy, I just don't have the time for it, or you feel guilty about what you're spending money on. And if you're not doing that, by not having a budget, it's statistically proven you're overspending by $7,500 a year, each and every year. Like you can go on vacation for that amount of money that you're losing. And advertising and marketing is a great industry. Like I market and advertise myself. But if you're not setting the intention of where your money's going, then somebody else is. And that's where that $7,500 comes in. But that's probably the biggest thing. Like we're not looking at our numbers. We say, okay, we're too busy. That's part of the reason why systems are so important. Like I love numbers, but I don't want to sit here and spend hours upon hours looking at an Excel spreadsheet. Like set up the system so that it does it for you. And then you can be the CEO and just check back in. The second one would be not being open to receiving money. Again, maybe that's walking past the penny on the ground or feeling like I can't. That's really a third one. Walking past like monetary on the ground, ignoring the wealth, like, thinking that this isn't possible. And the third one would be already always listening. This is something that one of my coaches taught me, and we'll hear something, we're learning something, especially as entrepreneurs, we like to learn, right? So you'll be listening to something and you're like, oh yeah, I know that already. And then what do? We tune it out. Yeah. But when we tune it out, we miss that one nugget, whatever we might have needed to move forward. So when we're sitting there and blocking things out, I'm like, oh yeah, I already know that. We're not hearing that one thing that we might be needing to hit the next level that we're working towards.
Okay. And so do you teach people in your course or how to make those systems and spreadsheets? Or
yeah.
Okay.
We get into the nitty gritty. We do all of the system, like step-by-step process to do all of those things. The Budgeting Simplified focuses on the personal side. In April, which I'm trying to remember when we're going to release this. This might be available for everybody. I'm doing a workshop. It's called Cash Flow Unlocked. And we're talking, it's specifically for business owners. And we're talking about the 5 essential keys that you need to make more money and understand your numbers and gain that control and confidence. And we're adding a whole nother side to the signature program, which is the Academy. It's a 12-month long program, like just to immerse yourself into like, hey, getting these things actually set up in the way that they need to be.
Okay. And the workshop's going to be, I'm assuming, live, right?
Yes.
Oh, sorry, online. So also, like, I remember reading this book from like Tony Robbins, like Money Master the Game. And I think like he has like he talks a lot about his mindset about money and stuff. So, and he does these like workshops in person, these seminars, but these are like extremely expensive, like, long, pretty long as well. Like I think 2-3 days or something. Do you have you ever been in one of those? And do you think there's value in those workshops or no?
Not specifically for money. I've done a couple of in-person retreats kind of like that, but not specifically working on money. I think there is value in that. I would love and like one day vision to host like retreats that we go for the weekend and we get these things set up, because there's so much work to do in setting up the system, like that's the hardest part. Like once you get that done, and I think going with a group of like 5 or 6 people, I don't know, go get a beach house or something, and we mix, like we're going to get the work done, and then we get to have fun and do it together. I think that would be amazing. But there's definitely power in doing those really concentrated events. But the key is what happens afterwards. Like, do you have the system and the support in place to keep up with it?
Yeah.
Or is it like a huge spike and then you're just back to normal?
Yeah. You can have a nice retreat or something, as you said, in a beach house. So how have you been getting these customers for your course? Has it been mostly through referral, or do you run some sort of like advertisement campaigns to acquire these customers?
I've done a little bit of ads. I do a lot of organic marketing into lead funnels, LinkedIn, Instagram.
Yeah.
Used to be Facebook, not as much Facebook anymore, but those two places, really working on lead generation. I've done some paid ads, but I don't think I'm going to do much more on Facebook. I think I'd rather do YouTube ads moving forward, just from a business standpoint and thinking about search intent. Some of those, it's a better fit for me.
Okay. And your podcast as well, how's that going? Kind of, did that just stem out of like, oh, I'm already making all this content for my course, so I might as well just put it on my podcast? Like, was that the reasoning behind it, or was that something completely different?
It was a little different. I had done a weekly video show for about a year, and there was actually an event that I wanted to do with my kids, and it was going to take place at the same exact time that I did the live show every single week. And it was like, we need to do something else. And I had only recently myself really started listening to podcasts, probably in about April. And the podcast launched in November of 2021. So made the decision and was like, this is the time to do it. And let's just make it happen.
And how are you advertising your podcast? Is it, again, just organic through YouTube and Facebook?
Yes, for the most part, it's just organic, word of mouth. I promote to my email list. I have a text list now as well. But
and do you gather those from your courses, or?
That has been through different lead magnets for the most part. The text list really started when I hosted a summit in the beginning of 2021.
Okay. Sorry. Okay, so I'm going to go into a bit more like understanding like your business dynamics, because I'm interested about this, because you are doing a lot of things like personally and professionally. So do you have like a team that's kind of helping you? Do you have like assistants? How many people on your team?
I technically have 2 VAs. They're both very part-time. Currently, I do a lot of it myself. And the one VA is actually helping me with my website. But I built my website, everything myself. It was only when there was an update and I misunderstood when they launched the new software. It made it seem like it was optional, no big deal. Well, they quit updating the old software. So that was going to start causing problems for performance for my site. So I hired her to help basically replicate the site again onto the new platform. Just time-wise, didn't have the capacity for it with my youngest being born. And then my other VA, we're probably going to be looking for something else, because I had a really great VA, and then she went off to law school. So we've been looking for somebody just as amazing as her since then. But they handle more of the transcription part of my podcast. I do all the video editing, podcast editing myself, but they handle the transcription to make it SEO WordPress friendly for my blog.
So 2 virtual assistants for both of them. So it must be a lot on you too. So you're still doing a lot of hands-on stuff for your business, and podcasts, it seems like. And
that's where the efficiency comes in. But yes.
Do you think you're ever going to step back, or you just enjoy doing it so much that you want to stay involved?
I enjoy a lot of it. As the business continues to scale and as I take on more clients, I will step back in doing less. But right now, I kind of feel like I'm in that sweet spot of letting them handle the parts that I can't. I did talk with another VA this morning looking at some of the different things, but the pricing difference between me being able to offboard it and what it takes for me to do just doesn't make sense. I'd rather keep the extra profit right now.
Do you think your maybe children in the future might join you in the business?
Possibly. I'm not going to force it, but they definitely have to be immersed in all of the
Yeah.
in the training, and they know, like when they
Yeah.
see money on the ground, they know that they have to say,
Yeah.
cha-ching, I'm a money magnet. Money comes to me in
Yeah.
increasing quantities all day long. Yeah.
So what's been the biggest obstacle for you while you've been running your business?
Finding time to be able to record, doing other podcast collaborations is probably one of the biggest returns on
Yeah.
investments that I've see as a lead generation strategy. I also
Yeah.
enjoy it, but especially since my youngest is still nursing, and even before that, like I can have people to help, but there's a limited amount of time. And since
Yeah.
we do homeschool, that kind of limits our availability of finding somebody local to babysit.
What's your sort of long-term goal with the business and the podcast? Are you so right now as you're doing the financial service coaching, do you think you're going to expand to maybe bring in more different, different types of services? Or are you just going to focus specifically on that?
We might add in, I teach what I call profit power ups. So we talk a little bit about the areas that affect money, but I think
Yeah.
everything will always have the slant of like, okay, how does this affect your finances? Because I do believe when you figure out the money thing, like it'll all work. And we can talk about your
Yeah.
health in relation to money and some of those other things that we can bring other experts in if they're not my area of expertise. But I think there's so much to unpack when it comes to
Yeah.
money, even just from all the aspects, investing, etc. Those are the areas that I'm like, I've been asked about, like, okay, can we learn more about this? And it's like, okay, great. Either I can do this or I can bring in somebody else to do a
Yeah.
guest training on it.
And with your podcast, are you kind of primarily using that as a terms of like a lead gen source, or is that something that you kind of just doing as well?
I use the podcast for authority building content. I do like for lead generation, I do want to keep it around, and I think it really helps to nurture. I try to have everything is saying almost the same thing. So if we're connected on Instagram, if you're listening to the podcast, if you're on the text list, you're getting the reminder of the same thing, and the email. Like it's all cohesive, it's all working
Yeah.
together because we need the repetition reminder as well. So yes, it is a form of lead gen still for me.
Yeah. Can I? There's just one thing I was curious about. Like, it might seem like complete outfit. Can I know like your sort of like your morning routine or yourself, like a day in the life, like how you're managing, your newborn, your children, your business, and your podcast?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm not a morning person at all.
Yeah. So that's
It's actually
I was like,
something
how
that
do you do it? Yeah.
that's something that I'm very passionate about because it is so preached in the entrepreneur space. Like you have to get
Yeah.
up at 6 a.m. and all those things.
Yeah.
And I fought it for so long. And when I finally let go of that, I was like, forget this. We homeschool. Like I'm not even going to set an alarm. The
Yeah.
craziest thing happened. I woke up earlier, and it could just be like the stubbornness entrepreneur in me.
Yeah.
Like somebody's
Yeah.
not telling me what to do. Like I would get up
Yeah.
earlier.
Yeah.
With Natalie, my youngest, we are still kind of recovering, I guess, from that bug that we had a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
We're normally up 8:30ish or so, but I block off that our morning stuff is what I call it, is done by 10 a.m. So that's like, everybody getting dressed and eating and taking care of like, making the beds and brushing our teeth and all that little stuff. I do my hair and makeup 6 days a week. It's not a requirement, but I find that I feel better when I do it.
Yeah.
So it's part of like that whole getting ready thing is
Yeah.
all done ideally by 10. And then from about 10 to noon is like homeschooling time, or I'll do administrative work. So a quick, checking my email and some of those tasks that doesn't take a lot of brain power because it's interrupted time. And then somewhere around 12 to 1, we have lunch. And then I try to block off, depending on the day. I work about a 3-day work week officially. So Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday. Then I have from 1 to 4 or 5-ish. That is like my dedicated time to be able to work. Podcast recording, depending on the day, or editing or content creation, those type of things.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting what you said about like, you tried the morning routine because I think there's a lot of people who say that, but I've heard like a lot of people like who I talk to talk about how just sort of optimize your morning based on what works best for you and not
Yeah.
someone else. Because if you're going to be waking up at 4 a.m., 5 a.m., like that's one thing, but then a lot of people wake up at 4 a.m., 5 a.m. and they think they've already conquered the day. I mean, which they have, like half the battle's won, but then a lot of people sort of just kind of that's it. Like that's kind of like they don't go and work. So if you might as well just wake up at 7, 8, 9, 10, or whatever, and you feel more energized and ready to attack the day, then you might as well do that. Especially if you're an entrepreneur like you, or like someone who has that financial freedom to kind of like work whenever they can. They're not working a 9 to 5 job, then they can afford to optimize their day or morning, as you said. So
Yeah.
yeah,
And
that's I was just
naturally,
curious about it.
yeah, and I think naturally you have to look at when are you most inspired. Like there are some
Yeah,
people that are most inspired in the morning. That is not
yeah,
me. Like I
yeah,
am the night owl. I joke my website was built from
yeah,
10 p.m. to midnight because that's what I
yeah,
would do. The kids would go to bed
yeah,
and I would get to work on my website and then look up and it's like, oh my gosh, like 3 hours have
yeah,
gone by because I
yeah,
was so energized by what I was doing.
yeah. Do you wish you were a morning person, or do you like how it is set up right now?
I like how it is now. I used to wish that I
Okay,
was a morning person, but not anymore.
okay, awesome. Um, do you remember your very first business sale? You know, eh, if it was a coaching program or whatever your
Mhm.
first business, the very first sale that you got.
I think the technical first one would have been in the network marketing company. But I
Yeah,
remember the first time that I made a sale with the pre launch. Actually, I think I still have the text message because I use
yeah,
Zapier to set up like
yeah,
text notifications when I make
yeah,
a sale. I'm pretty
yeah,
sure I still have it. It was a pre launch, it was just $7, like
yeah,
nothing crazy, but
yeah.
we were going through the car wash.
Okay. And then you saw the notification on your phone, and
Yep. And the notification come in that we had made a sale.
nice. Do you remember your first review that you got from your business? Positive or negative?
Yeah. I don't know that I remember the first one. I did launch like program debriefs after
Yeah,
that first run of that
yeah,
program. So I was getting on several different like Zooms then through with the people
yeah.
that had participated. Um, so no, I don't know that I remember the first one.
Okay. So, do you think like do you get the same level of excitement every time you still see like a sale notification on your phone as you did it the very first time, or are you kind of like used to it at this point?
No, I still get excited about it. Not only for
Okay.
myself, but I also know like the difference that it's making for them.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's still like even though you hit these levels, like I we give 10 cents on every dollar that comes into the company to Operation Underground
Yeah.
Railroad. And I got an email from them on Wednesday that said like we are one of the most like loyal donors and they want to record a video like to
Yeah.
showcase us and our support that we've given them. And I think it's almost, even though we've done all these things, there's still times it's like, is this real? Like, is this really what I get to do? Like, that feeling
Yeah.
is still there.
Yeah. Nice. So, how would you um, advise advise someone to start a business? What should be the first steps for them to take?
I think you have to know what your ability is. There's a lot of talk in the network marketing industry about like finding a why that makes you cry. And I don't know that you have to have a why that makes you cry, but you have to know why you want to do something
Yeah.
because it's not necessarily easy. It's simple, but
Yeah.
it's not easy. There's going to be those ups and downs, and you have to know what you want to do and then stay consistent. We can't have
Yeah.
like this shiny object syndrome. Like,
So,
if you
yeah.
know what you want to do and just start talking about it with people, I think word
Yeah.
of mouth marketing and referral marketing is one of the things that I'm working on doing better at. I think I
Yeah.
felt like, okay, I'm talking about money. Nobody's going to be like, hey, you have money problems. You need to go talk to her. Like, that referral didn't feel like it was going to
Yeah.
happen. So I
Yeah.
didn't necessarily push that as much as I could have with asking for referrals. But I think starting over, that would be the key thing to do is start building those
Yeah.
relationships and start being
Yeah.
consistent.
I think those are like really valuable points. The first one as well, where I think like when you're starting something, like um, usually like you need a bit of like the naivety to start it, but once you start, like even for me, I felt that like starting a business or starting a podcast, like you think it's a bit easier, but then once you start it, you realize like it's a lot more work and like a lot more commitment. And then it's like, but then you're kind of like already started it and feel why you're strong enough that you kind of just push through and keep consistent with it.
Yeah, I had a coach that would call it that cycle of mastery, like that dream and everything's great. And then you hit that point that's hard. And if you don't push through that to that mastery side, you just go and start the process over somewhere else. Like at some point, we got to push through that barrier.
Yeah. And that's like actually like I find interesting the shiny object syndrome as well, because like once you hit the hard point, then you kind of like look into something else, or like maybe I can do that. How do you think you can avoid? How do you think people can avoid that? Especially now, I feel like it's so easy to get that because there's just so much information and so much like there's people doing so much stuff on the internet. It's so easy to just look at it, and I feel that as well. Like I'm sorry, I start working in a business, then it's like I start feeling like a bit like frustrated or something, and then I look at someone else doing something else, and I'm like, oh, like maybe I should try this and as well, like And so how would you advise someone to kind of avoid falling into that trap?
Yeah, this is actually one of the points that we're going to talk about in the workshop in April. But you have to look at the numbers. This is where they matter, not just like your financial numbers, but like what you're doing and what works. Like if you're doing 100 different things and only 2 of them are working, well, 98 things are probably wasting your time then. Like you're spreading yourself too thin, and looking for that magic bullet isn't going to happen. But if we can look and see, we're very quick to write it off like, oh, that didn't work for us. Well, look at the numbers. What did it actually work? Did it convert in the way that it was supposed to? Is it just you need to rinse and repeat and fine tune your thing? Like really knowing what is reasonable to expect. I know so many people want to go viral with reels, and that's really not a long-term strategy. And most people who do go viral, it's not going to bring you other clients that you thought. Like that's not necessarily a growth strategy that I would be working on.
Okay. So you're saying look at the data and look at the numbers, and
you can tell what's working.
Yeah. So yeah, with the reels thing as well, like I think like that's an interesting point you said. But I think like it could work for someone who's kind of just not specifically selling like a show or something. It could help like with the with just kind of like attracting audience as well. Like I don't have an Instagram account, but that's something I've always like noticed that, especially for something like a podcast or just like something else like online, I've noticed that it helps a lot of people. And similarly with like TikTok and YouTube Shorts or something. But
and I love them. I love doing Instagram Reels, all the thing. Like I posted one again earlier today. But it's not a strategy for me to be able to grow. It'll happen. There'll be a couple like by byproduct, but like those people are not as warm and as engaged as somebody would be who's listened to this podcast recording and like spent the time to get to know me, or I'm in a different community. That relationship is way stronger. And I look at them more as it's a nurture level, like where the social media is more about nurturing people as opposed to growth.
Yeah. Makes sense. So how much do you think there's a specific number or amount of money that it takes for someone to be happy or content in life?
No, I don't. I feel that we can choose our happiness regardless of the amount of money that you have. And that's part of a reason, again, for the unstoppable finances is finding the happiness, finding the wins where you're already at. And when you talk about the vibrational again, like when you have that gratitude, that happiness, like level of vibration, you attract more of that to you. So then you continue to do that. You can't attract emotions that like you're not giving out. So if you're stuck in frustration, you're not going to attract the positivity too. You have to find the wins where you're at there, and then you can grow.
Okay. And then, but do you think there's an amount of money to be financially free?
There is. I mean, financial free by definition is having enough passive income that surpasses your ongoing expenses. But a lot of people will think like their business that they're active in making that amount of money from it is technically financial freedom. And really, by definition, that's not true. It's supposed to be passive income. And passive income is something that takes less than 10 hours of work a month. So if you can walk away from your business, go on vacation, and come back in 3 months and making the same amount of money, then that would truly be passive income. There's nothing wrong with it being active income. There's just a difference there in the quantity. I think financial security is the first thing to aim for, and then you can hit financial freedom.
Okay. Financial security can come from active income, right? And
yes, because financial freedom security is from passive. Yeah, financial security is more about having the money. If something happened tomorrow and you lost all of your income, regardless if you're an entrepreneur or not, it doesn't matter. You need to have the funds set aside. Please don't just set 6 months of expenses in a savings account anymore. We are in 2023 with inflation and all those things. Like you're losing money. There are other ways to do that, but having it covered. So if the stuff hits the fan tomorrow, you lost your income, you can take care of yourself and your family if you have one for at least 3 months. 6 months is better.
So where would you put your 6 month saving right now then?
It's diversified. You can have it in a couple different places. We have our contingency fund is what a lot of people will think of like their emergency fund. Yes, you should have some money in there. We talk about having at least 1 month of available money. So this is like cash on hand. Again, stuff hits the fan tomorrow. You've got it in a savings account. You can pull it out.
Or something. Yeah,
something. You got cash somewhere. And then you can also use marketed assets. So if you have money in a life insurance policy or you have cryptocurrency, it was really hot for a while. Some of those different things that if you had 30 days, 401k would fall in here as well. They're like marketed assets. If stuff hit the fan and you in 30 days, you knew like, okay, hey, we're going to need the money. You have the time to pull it out. And so you can have another month there. You can have 2 months there. As long as you have 1 month available in the savings fund, the rest of it can be done elsewhere. Like that part is really up to you. And I have a calculator that we use and you can plug in your numbers and it'll tell you how secure you are financially. And then the third level is long-term assets. So this would be like extra vehicles that you have around that aren't necessity to get back and forth to a job. This could be jewelry, etc. Some things like that. Like in a true crisis, like you could liquidate those to have the cash you need there.
Okay. So I'm assuming that since you're putting so much content out in all these different social media channels, like you must have gotten some sort of negative feedback. Is that true or no?
When it comes to putting all the content out, I don't know that like somebody said like don't do that. I know there's people out there that do, but I don't know that I've had a coach tell me not to do that. Let me take that back. I've had one tell me don't teach the how, like how to actually do these things.
Yeah.
Just like the what and the why. But I mean, I had a hater even just last week or so on YouTube shorts that we get to have some fun with.
How do you deal with it? Or do you like it because it's just giving you more engagement, or does that actually affect you?
It affected me for a long time. That one did not. That one fired me up. I was really excited. Because I was like, yes, like it was about impulse spending. And I get really passionate about impulse spending. And everyone's like, stop your impulse spending. And like, no, that's not accurate. So that one really got me fired up. I had one a couple weeks ago, but she wasn't trying to be a hater. I think I just caught her on a bad day. And it was just, I felt like I had poured my heart out, like giving so much value. And she called it spam. And that like, it just hit me on the wrong day. And I was like, that's it. I'm done for about 2 hours. I was like, that's it. Like if you're not, it was a rougher day, but we recovered.
Oh, you recovered. Nice. What is the other misconceptions that people have regarding personal finance coaches that you've noticed generally?
Yeah, I think a lot of people will believe that they only need a financial coach if they're looking to pay off debt or if they have a lot of debt that they need to pay off. And again, that might be a byproduct, but that's not the goal. And again, we can go back to the emotion and the thought process around debt. Not all debt is bad. And there are a lot of gurus out there that'll tell you to get out of debt. And I don't find that works well. It's been statistically proven. And then even if you're successful with getting out of debt, you have a 75% chance of getting back into debt within 5 years because of the mindset aspect and how you've programmed your subconscious mind to talk about get out of debt. So I think that's the biggest thing. They feel like, oh, I'm doing pretty good because I can pay my bills and, oh, I'm not in a lot of debt. Like, that's not necessarily what a financial coach is for. Like, yeah, we can help with those things, but that's not the thing that makes the biggest difference.
So the old habits can be repeated regardless. It's important to reprogram or rewire your mindset and thinking. And so you've kind of already mentioned about this, but I kind of wanted to go deeper about the challenges of raising a baby and running a business. And do you think it's kind of like resulted in, obviously you must have sacrificed something like, your sleep or your social life or something?
Yeah, I don't feel like that I have a crazy social life, but actually I know I don't, but I am an introvert by nature. And when you have your first child, he was born a couple days before my 19th birthday. I was a young single mom. You're not relatable to people you went to school with. Like, they're doing a totally different thing. And like, I'm focusing on being a parent here and providing for my kids. So I think it was kind of like that before I started the entrepreneur journey. It was about when I started my entrepreneur journey because of him. But I think that there are probably sacrifices. I'm sure that if I wasn't investing into my business for all those years, I probably could have taken another vacation or something. But having the freedom and flexibility that we do now, I almost don't feel like that it's a sacrifice. And
it was just like an investment.
Yeah, it was an investment. And I structure my business to make it work with having little kids at home. And I'm sure that I could do more in my business and do more podcast interviews and some of that if I was willing to open more spots up on my calendar. But even like with my private coaching, I do that via Voxer for the most part. We do our weekly Zoom calls for my academy program, but a lot of the other work, like, it's not necessarily that we need to sit down and talk on a Zoom for an hour. Like, it's those in between moments that we just need to be on Voxer. And you're like, I am dealing with this. I just need to know, what would you do? Or this is what I'm thinking. Is this right? And like those little things. And I can work those in the in between cracks of time.
Yeah. Okay. So if you're into it, you know how much social life, what kind of makes you happy? Your kids, God, family, what is it that makes you happy?
I love music. My family definitely makes me happy, but I love music. I love to sing. We garden. It's kind of like a little urban homestead. So I love being outside, working in the garden. Even just yesterday, we were going to pick up some plants, and I was at the store with the kids. And I was like basically skipping over to the plants because I was so excited like to get started gardening again. And my kids are like, you are crazy. But I really enjoy that. I love music and spending time with my family and board games and some of that.
On the outside, it looks like you have everything figured out. Do you think you've like actually made it now? Or do you think, do you think you'll ever make it? Or
I don't think that we've ever got it figured out. I think that we always have something else that we're working on. I think finding people to help you when the rough days happen is really key. And I do feel like I have a very solid support system now between the coaches that I'm working in with my business and then people personally as well. Like it feels like it's a really solid support team and focusing on those wins.
Okay. And I kind of want to, do you think you'll ever make it? Like, or do you think you'll ever come a point where you think you've achieved or fulfilled your mission that you can kind of take it easy? Or you think you're always going to be, pressing the gas pedal and moving forward?
I think there's always another next level to achieve. I don't know that it'll always be as... There's ebbs and flows. It's not like a hardcore line. Like, there's seasons of life. And even like when my daughter was born, like there was some time that I took back, and I think you can still do that. But I think that there will be always something that I'm pursuing. some level of excellence.
Do you believe, or actually, let me phrase it, what do you want your legacy to be? If you believe in the concept at all.
Yeah. I think in one word, I want it to be hope. There's so much out there, and I want people to feel the hope and like understand, hey, I was working with her, or she helped me see that hope, or she showed me how to find that happiness when I felt like I was just drowning. And yeah.
That's interesting. It's a very unique answer that I haven't heard from like everyone I've asked this question about. It's interesting because I think a lot of people, I was surprised. I thought a lot of people care about legacy, but I noticed that a lot of people actually don't as well care about the legacy. So, and a lot of entrepreneurs, as well. So that was something that was interesting. And it's kind of like, it's almost like 50-50, but I was kind of, actually not even, I think it's like 70% of the people I've asked or like just talked to generally don't really care about it as much, which is kind of interesting because I always assumed it was the other way around. I thought most people care about the legacy, and yeah.
I think it's something that I'm hoping happens by byproduct, like me showing up as the best version of myself.
Yeah.
That it has that ripple effect. I don't know that it was something that I went at intentionally.
Yeah, makes sense. I think one reason a lot of people don't really care about it as much because it's like, even if they leave a legacy, they feel like they'll be long gone by then, if at all they do leave a legacy. So it's like, it's again like the whole concept, like are you thinking about your legacy while you're still alive and still doing your work, or is it after you're gone? So, I have like a few short questions that kind of just like a short, I guess you can call it like a rapid fire round, but not exactly. I'll ask you just 5 quick questions. And you kind of, just answer it like in a few sentences without thinking too much about it. So first question is, what habit or which person do you owe your success to?
Which habit or which person what?
What habit or which person? Yeah, if at all, like, the specific person or specific habit that you want to owe your success to.
I'm going to say God, because that everything is orchestrated according to his plan, even if it doesn't make sense to me.
Okay. And then what is your biggest fear?
Failure. No, actually rejection.
In like what future's business or just in general?
Probably in general. I think it shows up everywhere that I guess rejection is a form of failure. So maybe I should go back to failure, but feeling like that failure, I think that is one of my biggest fears.
What is something that only the wealthy know?
Debt isn't bad.
So is that something a common knowledge amongst the wealthy people, or?
Because they leverage their debt. It's not necessarily consumer debt, but they leverage debt to be able to buy cash flowing assets.
That's interesting. What are your top personal finance books?
Time, Money, Freedom. It's Not All About the Money.
Yeah.
And the Compound Effect.
Okay. I'm just kind of writing the notes out because I probably were going to go and read after this. But do you believe you have a purpose?
Yes, I do.
Okay. What do you think your purpose is?
I think my purpose is to educate and empower those to not be afraid of the money anymore.
Nice. So regarding the book, are we done with the short form questions? And I was going to ask some from there. I was curious, do you think you're going to come up with a book soon? Or?
Yes, I do.
Like an
I already thought of the title. No, I'll do a physical book when I do it. But it'll be called Step Into Unstoppable.
Oh, nice. I like that name. What's the time frame for that? The next few years, or?
Probably in the next few years. I have not committed to sitting down and writing it. It was more of a long-term, like, this is something that I want to do. And then actually working with, it was a story coach that helped me come up with the Unstoppable Finances framework. And we came up with the book title, and I was like, okay, that's it. Like, I'll get it done probably in the next 5 years.
Okay. So you told me that you owe your success to like God. I was curious about like your relationship with God, and why do you think you owe your success to God?
I feel like that we have everything that's orchestrated according to his plan. We don't always
Yeah.
understand it. I mean, I never would have thought sitting there with my son Wyatt in the NICU, like that this was part of, the
Yeah.
grand scheme of things. But I think that
Yeah.
there is peace in knowing that it's his perfect plan. It's not
Yeah.
my control. I mean, I can sit here and of course we have free will and we take these actions, but
Yeah.
all of these things were orchestrated together in his perfect plan.
Yeah. All you can do is like work hard, but then and
Yep.
just leave the rest in the hands of God. I like that answer. Um, so kind of, we're going towards the end of it. I was just curious if you have any, your 20s was a lot. Like you did a lot. You went through a lot of things. So if you have any general advice to people in the 20s who are dealing with finances, especially in this market, which is pretty,
Yeah.
stable.
I think it's very important if you're going to focus on something, focus on your net worth, track your net worth. Don't worry about all the other numbers, but stay consistent and start we call it like a celebration list, writing down 5 things that you celebrated, that you accomplished each and every day. And when you focus on those, they don't have to be big things. I mean, I've got the kids. Sometimes it's like I got a shower in, or like we got the kids fed, like on these really rough days. But finding the things to be thankful for, when you create that habit, the bad days don't seem as bad.
Did you say net worth or network?
Net worth, N-E-T,
Okay, net worth. Okay.
So a lot of people focus on your debt payoff, and it's your net worth.
Makes sense. Okay. And what do you think about network, though, actually? Do you think, like, the people in the 20s should be focusing on, like, improving the network? Because a lot of people say a network is your net worth, so...
Yeah, there's a lot of power in who you know, and collaborating with people and having those relationships, but they need to be genuine relationships.
Yeah.
I think there's so much surface level stuff, but if you have a group of people that you can go deep with, I think that is really important and really key.
Fair enough. Makes sense. So, and when you signed the interview, I asked you what gets you out of bed every morning, and to you ended, I wanted to know, like, what helps you sleep at night?
Knowing I'm doing the best that I can.
Are there nights where you have some sort of stress or restlessness, knowing that you haven't maybe achieved what you wanted during the day?
There might be moments of that, but I have a routine because of our subconscious mind, and it goes to work while we're sleeping, that I focus on what I'm working towards. So we do the celebration list at night before we go to bed, and then focusing on what I'm working towards, that next goal that I'm trying to hit. Even if I just spend like a minute or two visualizing what that would be like before I go to bed, so that my subconscious mind can go to work for me on that.
Can you expand a little more on that, like, night routine of yours?
Yeah. So I write down the 5 things that I'm celebrating. I make sure that I fill out my planner, which is something that I created. It's a time management system that I created so that I know what my intentions are in the morning. I can hit the ground running, and then spending those just a couple of minutes before bed. It's nothing special, nothing like, I had a meditation I used for a while, but I don't even really use that anymore. It's just sitting there and really taking a minute to visualize that next goal that I'm working towards.
Yeah. I was going to ask you about meditation, but was that helpful?
I would love to, but I don't really have the time and space for it right now.
Makes sense, especially now, because I'm guessing it's a lot more like noisy in the night,
Yes, I can hear her crying in the other room. She's like, I am ready for bed.
So I'm gonna wrap it up. Like, my last was, you have any other final words of wisdom that you want to share before we end it?
I think we've covered a lot. I think there's just keep at it. I mean, you are doing something that you're passionate about, like, don't quit. And when you have the rough days, like I did, and it was like, that's it, I want to be done. Don't let yourself quit on those moments. Like, just, you have to wait until you can take a step away, take a break for whatever, walk away for a couple hours, walk away for a day. Like, nothing's going to happen. And then you can come back with a clear head and see where you're at.
Awesome. Thanks so much. That was solid advice. I'm done for here. And thank you so much again, Aimee, for coming over. And I think this was a super valuable podcast. It's one of the most fun I've had. I think there's so much information. So yeah, I'm excited to go back and look over and for the listeners to learn a lot as well.